Hi everyone, my name is Jhovana and I want to talk about this wonderful place called Egypt. This is a country geographically divided into two continents. The biggest part is located in northern Africa, while in Asia is located the Sinai Peninsula. Most of the surface is made of the Sahara Desert. On the other hand, the Nile River crosses the desert from south to north. These fertile lands are densely populated, concentrating the largest national population in Africa. Nearly half of all Egyptians live in urban areas, mainly in the populated centers of Cairo, its capital, and Alexandria. The country is divided into 27 provinces and is mostly an agricultural country. One of the most important crops is cotton. Egypt is a large country with almost 100 million inhabitants. The official language of Egypt is currently Arabic. However, Egyptian Arabic is used, which is dominant in the Arab world, thanks to Egypt's exceptional importance in the media and education. In and around the tourist areas, many Egyptians will be able to speak or understand English, so if you're a tourist, you will have no problem communicating with them. The main tourist cities in Egypt are Cairo, Alexandria, Luxor, Aswan, Hurghada, among others, where you will be able to find people who speak several languages, including Spanish. The official religion in Egypt is Islam, to which most of the population belongs. The second largest religious group is Christianity or Catholicism. When traveling, we have to take into account certain rules, as in the case of women, must dress discreetly when entering a mosque and cover your head, and it is necessary for both men and women enter without shoes. Egyptians are also very friendly with people in general and used to respect the culture and religion of other people, so you can enjoy your vacation without worrying as long as we respect their customs and rules. Egypt is a country that cares about the safety of the tourists and the population in general. If we talk about the climate, we could say that Egypt has basically two seasons, winter and summer. From November to April, we can find a pleasant climate since its winter is very mild. However, in summer, its high temperatures are an invitation to visit beach destinations such as Alexandria on the Mediterranean Sea or Hurghada on the Red Sea. Egypt has versatility, who allows you to enjoy its land throughout the year with its different destinations. Egypt is also a country that can satisfy any traveler, from people who prefer to relax on the beaches of the Red Sea to those who are looking for a unique and different adventure, discovering and exploring the various temples, ruins, and more than 120 pyramids in the country. Egypt is known as the cradle of the civilizations due to the different civilizations that have existed in its territory from the beginning of the history, from the different pharaonic dynasties to the most splendorous times of the Islam. All of them have bequeathed to the country a heritage that deserves the attention of all mankind. The country has gained international fame as the magical land of the pharaohs of the pyramids. With more than 5,000 years, Egypt's history is the longest and most documented in the world. I'm gonna talk about most important milestones in Egypt history. The first inhabitants of Egypt settled off the bank of the Nile. These first natives, isolated and without close enemies, were ruled by divine beings who were followed by semi-heroic dynasties, the descendant of Horus. The inhabitants were organized in provinces, and with their unification, two kingdoms emerged, Upper and Lower Egypt. Lower Egypt, to the north, consisted of 20 provinces, and its most important cities were Buto and Sais. It has its own pharaoh, and its kings wore a red and elongated crown, and its divinity was the cobra. Upper Egypt, with 22 provinces, had as main cities Hierakonpolis and Negev. Also, with its own pharaoh, the crown of the king was white and the goddess was a vulture. Many years later, King Menes of Upper Egypt invaded Lower Egypt and built a single kingdom. He was the first ruler of the third dynasty that would rule Egypt until its conquest by the Persian king Artaxerxes. The history of the Egyptian dynasty has been divided into three major periods well known: the Old Empire, the Middle Empire, and the New Empire. The Old Empire of Egypt lasted approximately 500 years and was known as the Age of Pyramids. During these dynasties, Egypt lived a golden age in which, without war, everyone worked to please their pharaoh. At this time, the funerary complex of Memphis was built in Saqqara, with the famous step pyramid. Later, the three great pyramids of Giza were built. The pyramid of Saqqara was also built by order of the king Unas. During the 6th dynasty, the power of the pharaohs diminished and the unity of the country began to fade. Until the 10th dynasty, and for more than 100 years, there were dozens of pharaohs who didn't know how to lead the country. The Middle Empire lasted 300 years. The beginning of the period is marked by the beginning of the Thebes as the capital of Egypt. During this time, Egypt extended its border, conquering a part of Nubia, but eventually they couldn't with Nubia soldiers, and this conquered them during two dynasties. The new empire lasted almost 600 years and began with the expulsion of the Hyksos, the Asians who had conquered Egypt in the past dynasties. The most important pharaohs of this period were Thutmose III and Ramses II. During the reign of Ramses II, Egypt conquered Nubia and built the temples of Abu Simbel. Ramses II lived almost 100 years and fathered more than 180 children. At his death, a series of successive Ramses were deteriorating Egypt, which was losing the greatness it had previously gained. Years later, due to the bad administration of its pharaohs, Egypt was invaded by the Persians and continued this way until the conquest of Alexander the Great, or also known in Spanish Alejandro Magno, and thus began the Greco-Roman period. One of the things the world knows and values most about Egypt is its enormous cultural impact. Among the different civilizations, that Egyptian civilization is one of those that has left the greatest legacy to humanity. Throughout their history, they made important advances in fields such as medicine and architecture, as well as great cultural contributions. Some of their inventions are still in use today all over the world, so here are a few of them. One of them was writing, which they left reflected on both walls and papyrus leaves. To write, they sharpened the stem of the plant, turning into a kind of pen. In order to write, they created ink by mixing plant juice with glue and water. In addition, some of these writings were sent to people in other geographically locations, so they developed a kind of a postal service similar to the one we use today. Within their polytheistic religion, they created several myths and legends to explain some facts such as the creation of the earth or life after death. Some of these stories reached Rome and had an important impact on current religions. Another of their cultural contribution was the administration of society. The government had ministers, provincial administrators, and also royal clerks. They had an efficient organization in all aspects. Also, the first strike in history took place in Egypt. It was around the 12th century when the workers demanded to Ramses III an improvement in working conditions. Thus, they were precursors of the labor movement. Some of their technological advances were vital to the development of this civilization. For agriculture, for example, which was the basis of the economy, they invented the plow and the hoe. In addition, thanks to a mechanism called shaduf, they brought water from the Nile River to the canals that helped irrigation. In architecture, they were able to build great pyramids such as the Pyramid of Cheops in Giza, which is more than 140 meters high and occupies 13 hectares. In relation to engineering, they manufactured sailing ships to carry out commercial transactions with other peoples and civilizations. They were the inventors of these means of transportations. In terms of craftsmanship, they melt copper with tin to make bronze. In addition, they also use these materials: brick, cement, white plaster, colored glass, wood, papyrus, and varnish. The Egyptians developed mathematics to an admirable level. They used addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. They even solved second-degree equations and square roots. They also had an extensive knowledge of geography and studied shapes such as the triangle, the square, the rectangle, etc. In the field of medicine, they came to identify different diseases and learn how they were cured. They used some natural ingredients of food, such as aloe vera from the skin or mint for stomach ailments. They also performed surgery and even amputations. To replace the removed limbs, they made prostheses from materials such as wood. They also applied splints and slings to well-broken bones and made dental bridges. They also applied anesthesia to relieve pain, as they were familiar with the effects of certain herbs such as water lily, cannabis, or poppy. In this aspect, they were ahead of European civilizations. Nor should we forget the progress they made in the preservation of bodies through mummification. Due to their knowledge of chemistry, they managed to keep their bodies intact over the years. Within science, astronomy was one of their favorite disciplines. By observing the sky, they were able to predict lunar and solar eclipses, floods of the Nile, and movement of the planets, among other aspects. Thanks to these studies, the Egyptians elaborated the oldest solar calendar on record. In this calendar, a year was divided into 360 days, which were grouped into 12 different months. Each day consisted of 24 hours and was structured in two parts of 12 hours each. At the end of the year, they had 5 days that were dedicated exclusively to the feast. The Roman Emperor Julius Caesar adopted this calendar. Later, the Pope Gregory applied it, making small modifications, so it's the method we use today. For sure, Egypt is one of the countries that have had the greatest impact on today's society. It is a country rich in culture, resources, and history. Without thinking twice, one of the vacations that everyone should have. So don't miss the opportunity to meet him if it's possible to you. Thank you.